A simple cleaning lady displayed her sketch at an elite art auction, and surprise, the first bid was $100. The second, $1,000. What happened next? Everyone in the room fought for the piece like their fortunes depended on it. And the final price? Find out tonight, only on Luna Report. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Luna. Back to the studio, and we begin. The room reeked of curated exclusivity. Crystal chandeliers floated like halos above museum-grade spotlights, each beam trained with surgical precision on six-figure paintings. Velvet ropes divided the elite from their prey, a sea of canvases encased in gold, each one whispered about in the hushed tones of power. This was the Monarch Auction House's private exhibition in Manhattan, invite only, guarded by armed discretion. Admission came with a net worth threshold. Attendance was a statement. Here, art was less about emotion, more about valuation. Every brushstroke equaled money. Every name on the wall carried weight, either dead or deliberately elusive. She moved through it like fog through marble columns, unnoticed until resented. Raina. Her staff badge clung awkwardly to her hoodie. Staff technical personnel. The lamination was bubbled, cheap. She pushed a janitor's cart with one hand, the other gripping a bag of trash so tightly the plastic groaned. The guests, of course, did not notice her first. They noticed her after they had heard themselves say something ugly. Well, that's Schmidt's. His canvas is the purest depiction of abstract absence. A man in a turtleneck intoned, swirling his Bordeaux like a chalice. Sold for $740 last year. Cheap. If you're not dropping $100K, you're not a collector, added his companion, a museum trustee with a smile sharp enough to slice canvas. Then came the third voice, careless clipped, a model maybe, or just someone who'd never held a mop. She nodded toward Raina. Art's not for people like them. Raina didn't flinch. She wiped down a corner frame of an acrylic horror show that looked like a toddler had attacked a blackboard with a crowbar. Her fingers smudged faint soot off the edge. She wheeled the cart forward. A courier entered the gallery, clumsily juggling two shipping crates. He stumbled. Labels were swapped. Confusion sparked among the handlers. One of the organizers hissed at Raina, gesturing sharply, "Fix it fast." She did what she always did, cleaned up after someone else's mistake. A pedestal at the far end stood oddly bare, its previous content whisked away prematurely. On impulse, maybe boredom, maybe the bone-deep urge to be unseen even in rebellion, Raina unrolled an old sketch from her bag and taped it lazily to the board. A4 paper. Cheap ink. A girl in a garbage bag pulled over her head, one eye peeking out. The words scrawled in jagged black. Clean it all. She stepped back, shrugged. Whatever. No one would notice. Not in this temple of forgery and pretense. Then someone did. A woman in couture froze in front of the piece. What is this? A man joined her. It's not in the catalog. Wait, is that Banksy? No, this is deeper, said another, breathless. It's pure subversion, an indictment of the entire system. Raina, halfway to the supply closet, heard murmurs growing behind her. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. Someone shouted. It's her! She ran. By the time Raina slammed the service door shut behind her, the gallery outside was no longer murmuring. It was roaring. She leaned against the hallway wall, heart hammering in her ears like a war drum. The overhead lights buzzed, casting her in the yellowed flicker of a world that didn't make headlines. Linoleum floors, bleach-slick tiles, and a half-eaten vending machine sandwich discarded on a folding chair. Raina wasn't sure what scared her more, that they saw her or that they wanted her now. A security guard passed by without looking up. To him, she was cart number 7, one of 6 faceless temps from the staffing agency. A few weeks ago, she'd been folding menus at a midtown sushi place for minimum wage. Before that, a dead-end nonprofit internship that paid in exposure and ulcers. And yet, outside this bland corridor, a painting she'd drawn at 3 a.m. on a piece of stolen printer paper was currently being debated by a Pulitzer-winning critic. They were calling it the most confrontational piece of urban protest art since Basquiat. They were calling her a phantom, a ghost, a genius. They were calling her. Raina pulled out her phone. No service. Figures. She didn't want this. Not like this. Not as a lie. But a lie was safer than the truth. That she'd spent years sketching in secret, her portfolio laughed out of submission by professors who told her she drew like a janitor. She still remembered the critique. Your lines are too raw, too angry, you don't respect the frame. They were right, she didn't. The frame had never included her. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the gallery loudspeakers. Bidding now begins for untitled installation, room 3. Opening bid, $1 million. Her breath caught. They were auctioning it? No. She shoved her way past another custodian, pushing her cart recklessly, the wheels squealing against tile. Move, she muttered, voice shaking. The elevator was too slow. She slammed the stairwell door open and took the steps two at a time. When she burst back into the gallery, she didn't get more than 3 feet before a spotlight found her like a sniper scope. "There she is," someone shouted. Phones rose like a field of thorns. Dozens of eyes turned. Gasps, shudders, flash. One woman whispered, awestruck, "The artist." Another man, rich, red-faced, and sweating, pointed. "She staged it. Performance art. Look, she's still in character." Raina's breath came short. Her hoodie was soaked through. Her hands were black with ink and trash juice. Her name tag dangled like a confession. She opened her mouth and said nothing, because what could she say? They'd already decided she was somebody, just not herself. They surrounded her. A tidal wave of silk scarves, glass heels, and cologne-thick air, all crashing in toward the girl with garbage on her sleeves and a price tag pinned to her chest. "She's an icon," someone whispered, breathless. "She's a plant," sneered another. "This is guerrilla marketing." "No, she's authentic. Look at the ink on her hands." Raina didn't move. Couldn't. The auctioneer's voice rose above the chaos like a lifeline she couldn't grab. "And now at 1.6 million. Do I hear 1.8? 1.8, yes, from the gentleman in the gray Armani. Now 2 million. 2 million. For a sketch she did while chain-smoking on her fire escape. A sketch no one wanted last year when she submitted it under her real name to a dozen local galleries. One had returned it with a sticky note. Not technically bad, just not memorable. But now, in the right room, with the right misunderstanding, it was worth more than every job she'd ever worked combined. A gallery assistant approached her like she was radioactive. "Miss, artist," he stammered. "Can we escort you to the press area?" Raina stared. Her mouth felt full of static. Press area. The same people who wouldn't let her pass the velvet rope an hour ago now wanted her in front of a branded backdrop holding a flute of champagne and answering questions like she meant to do this. Behind the assistant, she saw them faces from her past, or at least her rejection pile. That collector who once said, "Your work is too urban for our aesthetic," he was now being interviewed about her undeniable narrative. The blogger who had filmed her mopping the gallery floor during setup now had her TikTok open. The video already renamed, "I called it This Janitor is the Next Banksy." And her old professor? She wasn't here, but Raina imagined her watching the live stream, her lips tight, wondering how a girl she once called unfocused had just outsold half the faculty's careers in a single night. Raina backed away from the assistant. "I need the restroom," she said hoarsely. He nodded, relieved she'd spoken at all. She ducked out, down the hall, past a mirror. She didn't recognize the girl in the reflection. Not just from the smudges and sweat, but from the eyes. Wide, distant, trapped. This wasn't revolution. This wasn't justice. This was theft with applause. And Raina, she wasn't the artist in that room. Not really. They didn't want her truth. They wanted her silhouette. And they'd already bought it. The staff restroom was locked, so Raina kept walking past the catering exit, past crates labeled with fragile stickers and irony, into the back corridors where the hum of refrigeration units drowned out the noise of wealth. She found an unused storage room and shut the door behind her. Dark, cold, smelled like bleach and cardboard. Perfect. She slid down the wall until she hit concrete, knees tucked up to her chest. For 10 whole minutes, she didn't move. Outside, she knew they were saying her name. Well, a name. Maybe Black Banksy. Maybe the janitor prophet. Whatever the headlines had decided. But in here, she was Raina. A girl who used to steal markers from art supply stores because ink was expensive. Who once sat on a stoop and drew protest signs for a march she was too exhausted to attend. Who quit her last job after the manager called her emotionally unstable for crying over a fired coworker. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out the pen she always carried. She had nowhere to draw but herself. So she scribbled words onto her forearm, ink bleeding through sweat. "I am not your symbol." Then she added a second line beneath it. "This is not your revolution." A knock. She froze. "Raina?" a voice called through the door. It was Joel, fellow janitorial temp. Thick accent, quiet smile. He was the only person who hadn't looked at her differently since the chaos began. "Press is everywhere. They're looking for you. They're saying you're giving a speech." She didn't answer. Joel's voice softened. "One of the execs called you a valuable asset in the aesthetic disruption space." Raina let out a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "I mopped his vomit 3 hours ago." "I know," Joel said gently. A pause. "Then they're putting up security outside the gallery now, not to keep people out, to control your image." Raina gritted her teeth. So that was it. They weren't afraid of her art. They were afraid of her owning it. Afraid that the girl who crawled in through the service door might use her own voice now. She stood up, wiping her arm with her sleeve, the ink smeared. She looked at Joel. "Do you have your phone?" He nodded. "Record me," she said. And in the glow of a storage room's single bulb, Raina, still in her janitor hoodie, still wearing trash-streaked gloves, looked into the lens. She didn't smile. She didn't perform. She just spoke. "My name is Raina," she said. "Not Banksy, not a symbol, just me. And I didn't ask to be here. I was cleaning up someone else's mess, like I always do." Pause. They took a mistake and made it worth millions, but here's the thing. The sketch they're fighting over, it was never for sale. She looked straight into the camera. "I drew it for the girl I used to be, the one they would have laughed out of this room." Another pause. Then she added, voice steal now. "Stop clapping. Start looking." By morning, the video had scorched the internet. No filters, no PR team, just Raina in her hoodie in a storage room that smelled like bleach and erasure, saying exactly what no one wanted to hear. Stop clapping, start looking. Within hours, her face was everywhere. CNN called it the most honest 2 minutes in modern art history. Vogue described her as post-genre clarity wrapped in street-born radicalism. BuzzFeed posted a quiz. Which trash room artist are you? And Raina? She was still on shift. The auction house hadn't fired her. They couldn't. Not now. Not after her drawing hit $4.7 million overnight. Instead, they'd quietly reassigned her to the loading docks for discretion. In the staff break room, someone left her a half-eaten donut and a sticky note. "You're a legend. Also, the toilets on level 2 need bleach." Everywhere she walked, she was watched. Not with ridicule anymore, but with the worship of vultures. Brands slid into her DMs with collab offers. One sneaker company wanted to put her drawing on a limited edition line. A high-end gallery offered her a solo exhibition in Monaco. But not one of them asked what she wanted. They only asked what she could give them next. "Have you thought about building a brand?" one journalist asked. "Or maybe a political statement piece?" Raina stared blankly through her coffee. Her name wasn't even hers anymore. Raina owned Filtered was trending, but the image it sold had nothing to do with the girl who once cried in a dollar store aisle when she couldn't afford paper. Outside the auction house, protesters gathered not against her, but against the system. Raina watched through a service window as rich kids in curated streetwear chanted slogans written on iPads. "Art belongs to the people. Raina for president. Clean it all." They didn't know she was watching. They didn't know she'd slept 3 hours in a storage room and hadn't eaten all day. Joel handed her a sandwich. "You're starving." "I'm being sanctified," she muttered, biting in. "They're building me into a statue so they don't have to change anything." Joel leaned against the wall beside her. "Maybe you should burn it down." She looked at him. "Not the building," he clarified, "the illusion." By noon, Raina had become two people. There was the girl in the hoodie, still pushing carts, still invisible to those who didn't check headlines. And there was her, the Black Banksy, the messiah of anti-institutional truth, the new face of rebellion, conveniently aesthetic and delightfully silent. A girl whose image was printed on t-shirts by the same companies that once refused to stock independent artists. Raina stared at one through a shop window on Fifth Avenue. Her drawing, clean it all, centered across the chest, altered slightly, stylized, polished. The garbage bag on the figure's head now bore a tiny crown. Below it, in script, "The revolution will be curated." She nearly threw up. Inside, a customer tried on the shirt and asked the sales rep, "Is she like real or just a vibe?" A vibe. Raina turned away and walked fast, past taxis honking in fury, past reporters who didn't recognize her without the hoodie, past a mural of her face on the side of a building where a homeless camp had been cleared days before. That mural had been tagged with a single word: fake. By evening, she was back in the loading dock. The head of PR from the auction house approached her with a forced smile, glossy and brittle. "Raina, we'd love for you to do a press piece tomorrow. We'll compensate, of course. Maybe wear something a bit more conceptual." Raina blinked. "Conceptual?" "Yes, you know, something artful poor. Your hoodie's great, but maybe we add a safety pin or two. Play up the outsider motif." Motif. She nearly laughed. Instead, she said nothing. The PR rep handed her a typed packet. Just a draft of some talking points. Light edits, nothing serious. "We want to keep your voice authentic, just polished." Raina read the first line. "Art chose me. I'm just its messenger." She handed the packet back. "I'm not interested." The rep stiffened. "You might want to think about this. We've received acquisition inquiries from the Tate, the MoMA, even the Guggenheim. People are calling you a generational voice. Raina looked up, eyes level. They're not listening. They're buying silence. The rep faltered. You're being unreasonable. No, she said softly. You're just not used to someone saying no. The rep walked off, fuming. Joel leaned against a column, folding boxes. You just declared war on the art world. Raina stared at the concrete floor. No, she said. I just finally said something true. The pushback came fast. By dawn, a new narrative was spreading, clean, efficient, and full of teeth. A popular art critic tweeted, genius or grifter? Raina's sudden refusal to engage raises questions about authenticity. Was this rebellion rehearsed? A follow-up thread dissected her silence. Strategic mystery is the oldest marketing trick in the book. By midday, Raina's Wikipedia page had been edited 37 times. Someone added, former janitorial staff turned viral provocateur, claims unverified. The comments under her video had shifted too. From awe to suspicion. From praise to possession. She owes us more. Where's the next piece? If she doesn't speak soon, she's just another attention scam. They were hungry again, but now they wanted meat. She became aware of the new tone in the staff hall. Fewer smiles, more whispers. Management now treated her like a liability, not a miracle. You're lucky, one security guard told her as she passed. Most people get famous for doing something. You just cleaned a room. Another muttered, my niece draws better. Where's her millions? They were mad because she'd rejected the script. She was supposed to smile, to be humble, grateful, compliant. Instead, Raina disappeared again, not into obscurity, but into choice. No interviews, no posts, no curated gallery appearance. The sketch had sold for $7.2 million by then. The buyer? Anonymous. But Raina knew how the world worked. Likely someone who had mocked her to her face days ago. She went back to work. One night, while restocking supplies, Raina found herself face to face with a guest from the original auction night, the man who'd said, art's not for people like them. He didn't recognize her now. No cameras, no spotlights, just a girl with a mop. He glanced at her badge, smirked. Didn't you used to be someone? Raina's voice was steady. No, you just thought I was. The world stopped the morning Raina uploaded one photo. No caption, no announcement. Just an image of a blank wall with her original sketch taped to it. Clean it all. But this time next to it was another drawing. New. Raw. Same A4 paper. Same ink. A girl in a museum gala dress drowning in auction tags, her eyes scribbled out. Caption beneath, exhibit me dead. It dropped like a guillotine. Critics scrambled to analyze it. Articles dropped within hours. Raina rejects her own myth. The anti-artist strikes again. Clean it all too, a condemnation of the system she ignited. But Raina didn't answer calls. She didn't sell the second sketch. She didn't tag a gallery or watermark it. She just posted it and walked away. The art world panicked. The Tate offered $10 million. Raina didn't respond. A billionaire offered her a private studio in Paris. She blocked him, and then the inevitable happened. They turned on her. The same people who cheered her rise now hissed at her silence. She's ungrateful. She's wasting her platform. She wouldn't exist without us. The comments turned rabid. Anonymous accounts accused her of faking poverty. She's a plant, one thread insisted. Watch, it'll come out she's the daughter of a hedge fund guy. A well-known blogger who'd once said she's the future of resistance now tweeted, Raina is just performance dressed in janitor cosplay. Sad. Raina said nothing, but Joel, tired, patient Joel, had had enough. He posted a thread short and lethal. I've worked beside Raina. I've seen her hands cracked from bleach, her ink bleeding through the gloves she wore because she couldn't afford new ones. She isn't performing. You are. You're performing outrage because you can't own her. The thread exploded. Suddenly, Raina was trending again, but this time not as a symbol, as a mirror. A bitter one. The silence broke, not from Raina, but from a leak. An anonymous email hit every major arts publication, packed with documents, emails from Monarch auction house executives discussing how to leverage the janitor narrative, press kits drafted before Raina's second sketch, even invoices for merchandise contracts signed before she'd even uploaded it. The phrase manufactured authenticity appeared 13 times. Screenshots revealed a private Slack channel, Frame Control, where board members debated how much grit they could add to her backstory without legal exposure. One message read, we should plant an interview with her ex-landlord, get a quote about her artistic struggle. Even if it's fiction, it'll track. The art world imploded. Publications pulled their profiles. Brands who'd licensed her sketch without consent yanked merch off shelves. PR reps posted vague apologies. One gallery director resigned after admitting he'd tried to bribe a reporter to write a hit piece when Raina went quiet. Raina, still silent. Until the final card hit the table. A video surfaced taken on the night of the original auction, security footage from a backroom hallway. Raina dragging a trash cart, wiping her forehead. Alone? Then, two executives enter, whispering frantically, "She's not supposed to be here!" Too late now, they think it's intentional. Run with it, she's perfect. They laugh, one lights a cigarette. "We finally found our Banksy." The final shot, Raina staring at them from a distance. Expression unreadable. Neither of them noticed. She saw the whole thing. By morning, the video had gone viral. This time, no one defended the auction house. Their accounts went dark. Protests erupted outside their doors, not led by curated influencers, but by Raina's former co-workers, union reps, artists whose portfolios were never opened. They held signs, "Not your muse. Clean it all for real this time." Raina was right. Raina still didn't speak, but a letter appeared on her old website, just text on a white screen. "They tried to auction my silence. I drew a mirror instead." At the bottom, her real name, for the first time. Not a symbol, not a brand, just Raina. The fall of the Monarch Auction House made international news. Their leadership resigned en masse. Multiple lawsuits were filed, artist fraud, labor violations, defamation. Raina's name was never officially attached to any of them. She didn't sue. She didn't appear on panels or sell her next drawing to the highest bidder. She simply vanished. Except for one final appearance. 6 weeks later, at a modest community gallery in Queens, a local art show called Voices of the Unseen opened quietly. No sponsors, no velvet rope. Just folding chairs, chipped paint, and canvases stapled to drywall. At the center wall, under a cracked skylight, hung Raina's second sketch, the girl drowning in auction tags. Beside it, a note in simple ink. "This one isn't for sale either." The room filled slowly, not with critics or investors, but janitors, nurses, waitresses, unemployed painters, temp workers, people who recognized themselves in her lines. And there, tucked quietly into the back of the crowd, Raina stood. No hoodie, no badge, just herself. Jeans, paint-flecked t-shirt, hands still rough from work. Someone whispered her name. Another asked for a selfie. She smiled politely, declined. When a child pointed at her and said, "That's the drawing lady," Raina knelt and asked, "Do you like to draw too?" The girl nodded. Raina handed her a sketchpad blank, no autograph, just paper. Later, as the sky turned gold over rooftops and no cameras flashed, Joel joined her on the curb. They shared a soda, passing it back and forth like kids who had no idea their friend had just dismantled an empire. "They're calling this the Raina effect," he said. "Think it'll last?" She stared at the cracked sidewalk, then up at the open window behind them. Through it, the crowd inside was laughing, unfiltered, alive. "No," she said, "they'll try to polish it, sell it, repurpose it, but that's not my problem anymore." Joel smiled. "So what's next?" She shrugged. "I draw," she said. He raised his brow. She grinned. "For free." The revolution hadn't been a painting. It had been her refusal to sell the frame.